Welcome to another episode of Kentucky Esports Weekly. I'm your host, Nathan Stevens, and we got a lot to talk about today, including some industry news. Some things happened this past week. The reveal of Final Fantasy XVI, the PS5, some more teasers like the God of War Ragnarok teaser. That should be interesting. And a few other things industry news is definitely going to cover. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into talking about some UK related news as well. And finally, Alex and I are going to get together at the end of this and discuss Xbox acquisition of Bethesda, which should be an incredibly good conversation. Until then, we're going to start out with Hailey and Tyler, and this is their industry news.
Hello, I'm Tyler Ralston.
And I'm Hailey Salyers.
And this is your week's industry news. Last week, Sony held their PlayStation Showcase live event, which finally provided consumers with the pricing details of their new console, as well as glimpses to upcoming launch titles and most anticipated games to be released at later dates. Among these reveals was a surprise trailer for Final Fantasy XVI. This new intro will be the first fresh mainline, not being a remake or spin-off, game in the franchise since Final Fantasy XV, which released on consoles in 2016 and for PC in 2018. The trailer establishes some central story beats, identifying the protagonist as a protector to a noble's son in the midst of ongoing wars, and a greater threat only mentioned in the trailer as the Blight. Also appearing in the trailer are iconic figures, namely the staple chocobos of Final Fantasy, as well as common godlike entities known by various names, from summons to icons to primals, such as Shiva, Titan, and Ifrit. Battles appear to continue the trend from the previous recent titles for being action combat oriented, with magic and melee abilities interweaving for combos, and a clear dodging mechanic can be seen in the trailer. This project is being produced by Naoki Yoshida, a man largely responsible for Final Fantasy XIV's successful revival and continued growth, and alongside him is Hiroshi Takai, who has worked on several of the franchise's prior titles, now working as a director. As of this trailer, Final Fantasy XVI has no definitive release date, but it is confirmed as a PlayStation 5 exclusive, with no current details on a release to other platforms at any time, despite the accidental and misleading text at the end of the trailer. If it will be brought to PC in the following years, only time will tell.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla has a new release date. The latest entry in the series was originally scheduled for a November 17th release. However, the launch has been moved up a week to coincide with the release of the Xbox Series X and Series S. We've discussed the latest Assassin's Creed installation on this show before, but as a reminder, Valhalla will feature a Viking theme and take place in the 9th century. Players will take on the role of a male or female version of the Viking raider Eivor. Ubisoft has said that they attempted to incorporate authentic and accurate Viking fighting styles into the game. Valhalla is expected to tie into both Origins and Odyssey. Post-launch DLC will be available through a season pass. Assassin's Creed Valhalla will be available on many platforms, including the PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and Series S, PC, and Stadia, on its new release date of November 10th.
Ever since a Demon's Souls remake was teased at a previous PlayStation showcase, fans have been excitedly waiting for further news and glimpses at any and all changes. As of this latest event, their patience has been rewarded with a full gameplay trailer that showcases much of the tutorial area for Demon's Souls, as well as later cutting together footage from later encounters and areas to showcase just how different but recognizable this world is. While this realm is dark and foreboding, there is still some life and color to be found, which this remake has made far more vibrant. Alongside fluid animations that carry weight and express impact when your sword is buried into the chest of an adversary, and sound design that really cements this world as real, with the player's armor clanking against itself and the ground with each firm step forward while enemies audibly shamble around you. The textures and detailed effects on bosses further their grotesque demonic appearance and their intimidation as they set ablaze everything around you or use the essence of souls to pierce your body with magic. This, alongside what sounds like an incredible rescoring of the original music and the 60 FPS performance, promise an incredible return to the predecessor of the Dark Souls series, or a brand new dark adventure for those who never experienced it before. Demon's Souls Remastered is set to be released as a launch title for the PS5 on November 12th at a price of $69.99.
New details about the 5th Destiny 2 expansion pack, Beyond Light, were revealed last week. Bungie has previously confirmed that the pack includes options for armor transmogrification, and last week they revealed more information about the pack, including details on how players can customize and enhance their Ghost sidekicks. As the game stands, Ghost shells are primarily cosmetic. Different shells will give Ghosts different looks, and most shells are either acquired through gameplay or by purchase in the Eververse store. Each shell has random perks, like Glimmer, Resource, and Experience Boost. In the new expansion pack, Ghost shells will become more customizable and follow a form of Destiny 2's Armor 2.0 system. Shells will earn energy that can be used to equip different mods. These mods can be swapped out, meaning that players can equip mods that they think will be most useful before going into a new situation. Bungie's goal with this change is to allow players to separate a Ghost shell's appearance from its advantages as they move through the game. It also allows players to make more strategy decisions in how they play. Destiny 2 Beyond Light is scheduled for a November 10th release date.
To close out their PlayStation Showcase event, Sony gave players a final surprise reveal in the form of a teaser trailer. As snow falls gently over a black background, a familiar gruff voice can be heard warning that the time draws near. With this warning, ice rapidly begins to take shape into the Omega-like symbol that represents the God of War franchise, but with a twist. As the shape reaches its end, it forms a head almost like that of a serpent, as runic letters are etched into the ice. With the symbol complete, the music swells before it all fades to black again, and the voice of Kratos tells viewers, "You must prepare yourself." Icy blue letters appear and spell out the simple phrase, "Ragnarok is coming." Given that the last God of War left off with its dramatic cliffhanger and the truth of Kratos' son's identity made clear, it is also clear that the end of the Norse gods may be fast approaching. God of War Ragnarok has no set release date, but the trailer states an expected arrival in 2021 for the PS5.
And finally, with Halloween happening next month, it looks like Red Dead Online may have something special in store for players. Data mining has revealed that zombies may be joining the game. The 29 male and 19 female zombie models are listed with the tag Army of Fear, but their exact purpose isn't known yet. Though they might be part of the new game mode, they might also be part of a temporary Halloween-themed overhaul of the game. It wouldn't be the series' first inclusion of the undead. The 2010 standalone expansion pack, Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare, introduced a zombie campaign to the original game. But now, a decade later, we'll have to wait and see how these new zombies will come into play in what fans are jokingly calling Red Undead Online. And that's all we have for the industry news this week. Now back to Nathan.
Thanks, Hailey and Tyler. Good stuff. The Red Dead update is interesting, as is the Destiny 2 Beyond Light improving the Ghost. I thought it was just as good as it should be. But hey, I guess Bungie knows better. Anyway, Alex Cutadean is here joining us, and we're going to get to the Xbox Bethesda discussion in just a second. But what's going on UK's campus with regarding video games and esports?
Yeah, so I want to remind people about the Gen 10 scholarship. So that applications for that are live now. So head on over to genG.gg/foundation, and that will give you information about how to apply for that. We also want to remind people about UK's speaker series, Esports speaker series next week. We have Meg Wallace, who's going to present on the value in gaming. She comes from the philosophy department, so it'll be an interesting philosophical take on gaming. And anytime you've ever had someone say, "Oh, what's the worth of gaming? You're wasting your time." Well, she's going to talk about some philosophical aspects about that, and so you can have some justification to take back to your parent, significant other, whoever might be critical of people playing games.
There are quite a few people out there. I think growing up in the 80s, parents always thought it was a waste of time. But hey, there's money to be made. There's careers to be made. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with it. But that's cool. Philosophy is like an underappreciated part of college, but it is so integral to a lot of things in life. So it's neat to see how that's going to be applied to video games. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. So here we are. We've got just happened this week. We've got Xbox come in, and they're doing their pre-orders today, and yesterday they came in and announced that they bought Bethesda. Bethesda and ZeniMax is actually the company, but that is a private company that was owned by no stockholders, and they bought them for $7.5 billion. That's with a B, dollars. And I don't know. I have some unusual feelings about that. So what do you? I mean, you've got a company that is desperate for first party right now because Halo Infinite didn't take off at launch. They needed some good news because they're kind of lagging behind. PlayStation stole their thunder last week. So they go and purchase Bethesda, which has a ton of video games in it, including Elder Scrolls, which is probably their most valuable property. And Elder Scrolls Online is still a growing community, and the Elder Scrolls games, the individual games, number 6 is coming, and I know people love it. I mean, goodness gracious. Skyrim came out in 2011, and it's still being made and being played like 9 years later. Of course, thanks to the PC modding community. So what do you think about this? Like, what do you think this is a good thing for Microsoft? Do you think this is a desperate thing for Microsoft? Is it a good thing for everybody? I've heard good and bad horror stories from developers about working with Microsoft, but
no, I mean, initially, I don't think it's good for everybody. I'm a big fan of diversity in your business operations, and so when you see this consolidation of big companies like this, the consumer tends not to benefit from that, and we've seen it in other areas as well. I'm not going to name any gaming companies, but I definitely have some in mind that have, after big acquisitions, they seem to have changed from their their initial position where they no longer have the ability to make just great games. Now they have to answer to a larger company that has, instead of the best game in mind, they have their business interest. And those two can operate hand in hand. But oftentimes we've seen business decisions in many different companies, business decisions negatively affecting the consumer experience, the game experience. So I don't think, I could be proven wrong, but my initial reaction when I see large mergers like this is that the consumer typically doesn't come out ahead. But I think from Microsoft's perspective, I think it's a great play. Like they need, especially right now, need first-party titles. They need launch titles, and Bethesda has a large PlayStation. It's in a sense could be anti-competitive because they have many PlayStation releases, and it could potentially be, if they can turn those into Xbox exclusives, they're potentially stealing some of that market from Sony.
Well, I know that Ghostwire and Deathloop were set for timed exclusivity with Sony, and they announced that the contract was signed. Whether that's honored or not, it's going to be kind of everybody's question right now.
They have said that they will honor those contracts. I mean, it's a contract, so for them to get out of it, it would cost Microsoft a lot of money. I believe they have already said they're going to honor those contracts, but I'd be very surprised if they didn't. Going forward, though, we saw this if you look at like Netflix licensing Marvel content. After Disney bought Marvel, then we saw kind of the retiring of Marvel content on Netflix. Yeah. And so we're going to see similar things happen where I believe we're going to see more and more of that being more and more of that content is going to be exclusive because Microsoft doesn't have an incentive to release titles on the PlayStation unless they're going to allow Bethesda to continue to operate autonomously. But I'd say that's unlikely.
Yeah, the likelihood of that is very low. I know Phil Spencer released a statement yesterday saying that each game would be decided from game to game whether it would be releasing solely on the Xbox or on other platforms. He was not going to mention PlayStation. But it's, I don't know, going back to your point about how developers are respectfully, not just to simplify it, how they were treated underneath Microsoft. It's a give and take. Bungie did not benefit from breaking away from them. Honestly, they broke away from them and realized that Microsoft provided them structure, provided them everything they needed to solely focus on gaming. But a company like Ensemble, who made Age of Empire games, they suffered from being under Microsoft. This is according to Jason Schreier's Blood, Sweat, and Pixels book, where Ensemble had pretty much, when they were under them, had planned to make an RTS that was away from Age of Empire, and had been maybe a quarter of a way through developing it, and Microsoft came in and said that's got to be a Halo game, and forced them to change that to Halo Wars, and forced them to scrap some other projects. And then eventually, 4 months before the product came out, Microsoft told their staff, and again, this is according to the book, that they would be dissolving Ensemble after the game was released. So it's like, I know Pete Hines, I know Bethesda. I am a huge fan of both of them, and I know this is a lot of money. I just don't want anything to really change internally for that. Secondary, I think it would be weird that Elder Scrolls was an Xbox only exclusive, like Elder Scrolls 6 when it comes out. I think that you miss profit points at that level. I mean, when that finally rolls around, like by 2023, when it finally comes out, it is best. All the consoles had sold. They'll probably get to a certain point where they're not plateauing, but definitely the consoles are slowing down in sell. So why wouldn't you want, even though you own them, that to be on PC, on Xbox, and on PlayStation? Like, what would be beneficial about being exclusive?
So the benefit is, you get this platform lock-in, and Microsoft, like we talked about either last week or the week before, with the Xbox Game Pass, they are looking to lock people into their platforms. Now, I think we are more likely to see Bethesda games simultaneously released on Xbox and PC. That kind of Xbox, that Game Pass exclusive, I think we're more likely to see. As a publisher, they definitely want their software on the most amount of platforms. That's when we look back at the list of most popular games throughout history, it's almost always titles that aren't platform specific or non-exclusive titles that are the biggest sellers. But Microsoft isn't selling games, they're selling an ecosystem. And so I think that's where you start to talk about antitrust and anti-competitive behavior when something happens on this scale. And one thing I haven't really seen much is talk about that, and it might not be warranted, but I think it should be looked at, especially in the climate today, where we had just a couple months ago, we had some of the biggest tech companies testifying in front of Congress. We had Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon talking about some of this anti-competitive behavior that exists on these platforms, and the kind of curiously absent from that was Microsoft. And maybe because this is a gaming topic, it's kind of flying under the radar, but acquisitions of this scale should be looked at. And I don't know, I think there's enough competition right now in the gaming space, both on consoles and PC, with software developers. There's a lot of competition out there. And so my sense is that there's still enough competition, but I think it should at least be looked at, and it seems to kind of be flying under the radar with regulatory bodies.
So what do you think about the risk of this deal? I mean, you're talking about you just paid, say you're Microsoft, you just paid $7.5 billion in cash for this company, and respectfully, not all the games coming out of Bethesda are gems. So where do you make your money back? $7.5 billion is a lot of money to be made back.
I think they get it back in part with that platform lock-in. you look at something like, if you want to talk about a platform without gems, Apple Arcade is, they aren't, they don't really have the clout that Microsoft does in the gaming space, but they don't necessarily need hits to lock people into a subscription service. They sometimes just need enough, and they will have those hits, but they're really, I think the play here is really to operate, to really increase the scale of their ecosystem, and they're going to kind of absorb some of those, some of the potential losses with that. But they need, my guess would be that they saw that they were not able to hit they didn't have the IP, the intellectual property to release with their latest console, and they needed to correct that, and they wanted to kind of insulate themselves going forward as they tried to enhance this Xbox Live platform.
Yeah, I know Game Pass was a big bet for them. I think that kept them, at least kept the stockholders happy in this current generation that we're going through and ending right now. And they bet, I think Phil Spencer bet a lot on that. Though, I mean, it kind of works like Netflix, where, yeah, you get a good subscription. It's $14 a month for, like, you can download it on your system, whatever it is that's on it. And but at any given point, any of those games can just disappear. And I mean, that's a risk as well for the consumer. But
it is. And with Netflix, they've reached that point where it's like so many consumers feel like they just have to have Netflix. And so it's just something that's kind of happening in the background, and we just have Netflix, and I know many other people, it's just that service. And I think for gaming, Microsoft would like to be that service that people just have and just keep active year round, and not just when they don't just consumers aren't just pouring money when a new console comes out, that they're able to get a larger volume of people in it, all of persistently.
Well, however it's going to end up, it's going to be interesting. I think that this new generation that's coming up in November, it's already started off with an interesting bang. So, but it's neat. Honestly speaking, if I put my little PlayStation card to the side here, because I've enjoyed them more than I have Xbox, because Xbox just, for me, has been floundering this current generation with the Xbox One. But I think that Phil Spencer is really trying to right the ship and making it an accessible system that offers a lot. And the purchase of Bethesda is really bold. And yeah, there's probably going to be some ups and downs with it, but credit him and wanting to really make this a competition and expand gaming, because it really needs it. So amen to that. But any last words?
No, some exciting times ahead. It'll be interesting to see through this fall, who the winners or losers are through this fall and through the next year, to see what, if we get those games get released that are really needed to make these platforms successful. And, at the end of the day, Microsoft's one of the biggest companies. $7.5 billion isn't chump change, but it's something a company on the scale of Microsoft is kind of able to absorb, and we'll see. It'll probably be a few years, but we'll see if that's a good play for them.
Very cool. All right, well, that's all I got. We got a good discussion of Xbox. We got some good industry news. Just hope you all have a good day and wear your masks and be safe, and we'll see you next week.